Welcome to the Content Champion podcast. We provide the training and tools to help you become a content marketing champion in your online business. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Loz James.
Hi guys, welcome to the Content Champion podcast. Thanks for listening. On the show this time, I'm talking with niche site entrepreneur and expert affiliate marketer, Dom Wells of Human Proof Designs. In this episode, we're discussing how to scale content production, important for both niche site creation and business sites using content marketing. So let's dive in. Thanks for coming on, Dom.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Now look, before we drill down into scaling up our content operation, could you tell us how you got started in affiliate marketing, please?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2012, I was living in Taiwan teaching English. I'd been there for a few years and I wanted to stay longer, but I didn't really want to teach English anymore. I wanted to make more money. I had a lot of ambition and I just thought, how can I make more money while still living in Taiwan? And that led me to looking online, and I read the 4-Hour Work Week. And I just kind of followed my nose and discovered affiliate marketing, and I devoured the internet and everything I could. And I built my first site in August 2012.
Tell us about Human Proof Designs, because I love it. I've been devouring all your content over the last few days.
Yeah. So with Human Proof Designs, I came up with the idea when I had been spending a lot of time on websites like flipper.com, where you can buy and sell websites, kind of like eBay for websites, I guess. And one thing I noticed was that there were a lot of people producing these kind of junk scam websites. Basically, they would just create this cookie cutter website. It was just like the same website over and over again, the same content. They just changed the domain name, maybe put a different logo on. And they would say, this website's going to make you $1 million. You're going to be an overnight millionaire. You don't even have to do any work. And it's only $500. And to me, I would think, well, that's obviously a scam. And people were buying these things and I couldn't believe it. So I just thought, well, why don't I build sites for these beginners who don't know how to get started, but I'll actually build legit sites. Like I'll do real keyword research and I'll make each site unique. And I spent months researching and getting started. And then I put the sites on Flipper and I made like $100 because nobody wanted to buy these sites because they wanted to buy the ones with all the fake stuff and the false promises. So I realized I was going to have to build a website around my sites so that I could educate people about the sites and I could deliver training and I could just show the value and turn myself into an authority. So that's what I did. And that's where Human Proof Designs was founded in, I guess it was July or August 2013.
Okay, so now you've got this big content team that you provide a ton of content every month to your clients. We're going to go on to that a bit later, but could you set the scene for us, if you would, in terms of the context here? Because in a nutshell, being able to create and promote quality content, at scale, as it were, is key to our continued online success, isn't it?
If I could distill it into short sentences, I would say the more content you have, the more keywords you rank for, the more traffic you get to your site and the more money you make. So if you have very little content, I can't really see you making much money with your site unless it's like you're a dentist or something and it's a very specific business website like that.
Okay, it's pretty sobering that. Okay, so we need to be creating good quality content. We need to be able to scale that up across our sites. Before we look into the details of that, could you tell us about your own content creation team at Human Proof Designs and what sort of results you've achieved with that and perhaps on your own sites as well?
Yeah, sure. So when I first started out, we were just using other content agencies and I was using places like iWriter, Hire Writers and places like that to get my content. And I decided that it was a lot better in the long run if I could do stuff in-house because then I would always have the same writers and I could say, this is how our content's going to be. I didn't have to spend ages explaining the content and things like that. So from, I guess, the end of 2015, the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, I started hiring my own writers, and then I started hiring editors as well. And most of them came from Upwork. So we've spent enough money at Upwork to be considered premium or elite or whatever the word that Upwork uses. And we probably have about 100 freelancers under us. So most of them are writers and editors. There's obviously a few graphic designers and stuff as well. So, I mean, now we're early 2017. So basically in just under 2.5 years, we've gone from kind of like no writers to about 100. So that was fun.
That's amazing, Dom. That's really quick success, and you've set that team up to run in a very streamlined way over a relatively short space of time. I'm just wondering, you said there at the top of the show that you've got experience with teaching, and is that kind of central to how you've been able to hire people and put that team together? Are those skills that you need to be a manager, as it were, to really train people and disseminate the information they need to do the job properly? Tell us a bit about that team.
That's a good question that I'm not sure. Maybe because I don't know what it's like doing this without teaching skills, so I can't really compare. But I don't think I'm a particularly good manager, especially as when I first started, it was just me and writers and editors. And so I would give writers their assignments, and then I would take the assignments and give it to the editors, and then I'd take the completed work and give it to my site builder to build a website. So it was very hard for me because I was doing all of this whilst also managing sales and wearing all the other hats in the business. So I'm not a particularly good manager. And the main reason we scaled was because I hired managers and installed them. I think maybe the speed that we did with it was my ability to teach my managers, this is how we should do it. And yeah, there's probably a level of patience that I learned from teaching where I realize whether I've explained something wrong or whether somebody just needs more time to get the hang of something or whether they're just kind of useless, which sadly is the case sometimes. I think the key to our successful scaling was that we spent a few months getting it right and developing the systems so that we were able to scale as and when necessary, because we didn't really set out with this idea that we needed to get to 100 hires in 2 years. We basically were like, okay, we've just sold 10 websites. We need to hire more people. Let's not panic. How are we going to do it? And so definitely all of our processes evolved as we kind of developed different needs.
Okay, well, let's zero down into the content creation side of things, because I know you build these fantastic niche sites as well. I kind of like a kid in a candy store when your emails come through. I'm just looking through them all and they sell out remarkably quickly. So we can give some links to all this at the end of the show. But focusing on the content, tell us about the structure of a team that's going to create content for a site. For anyone listening who's doing content marketing on their business site or building out a niche site, how does it sort of pan out? Is it you at the top, then a manager, then editors, then writers? What's the structure to scale it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually how we build sites for customers and how I manage my own sites is a similar structure. So it's going to be applicable for, various people listening. So yeah, we have a writer, an editor, and then either me above them or a manager. When I first started, I was the manager. Now there's actually 2 other people in between. Now we have the manager, and then we actually have my operations manager, and then me. And for my own sites that I'm running, it's just me, and then my project manager, and then like a writer and an editor. So what would happen is, maybe, let's say I've researched some keywords and I give them to my project manager and say, hey, we need to get these articles written. And then he'll assign them to the writer. The writer will go away and do them. And the project manager is just there for accountability as well, to make sure the writer doesn't go missing, because sometimes they go missing. And then, the writer comes back, says, here's the finished work. And the project manager will take a look at it, make sure it looks like it follows the template. Very important step that we always regret if we ever forget this step, and that's we run the content through Copyscape to make sure it hasn't been plagiarized. One thing we found is you could have a writer who produces perfect, unique content for you, like 100 days in a row. So you stop checking, and then, I don't know, maybe that writer gets busy, or they just try and cheat, or something happens, but suddenly they hand in some work that's just been lifted from another article. So no matter how good your writer is, you always need to run it through Copyscape. And then, the editor will have a look, and the editor's job is twofold, really. Like, first of all, they want to just catch mistakes like typos, proofreading, and also they kind of have to check whether the article makes sense. Like, they might say, how come you've reviewed the same product twice here? Or how come that you said this? Like, you've said something here and then you've contradicted it there. So they're kind of there to make sure the writer hasn't just made some sort of glaring error. And then if that's all good, the writer just passes it back to the project manager, who will then make sure the articles get uploaded. We tend to assign articles in a batch, like 8 articles at once, 10 articles at once, 15, 20, because we just found that a lot of writers prefer to write in batches. Maybe a lot of them are part-time. Maybe they come home from their day job and they just want to write for 3 hours and then they're done. So it's generally better to do it in batches like that. And you can actually get discounts as well, because writers would prefer to have, if you say, can you write 10 articles for $100, they're more likely to say yes than if you say, can you write 1 article for $10? It's just the way that sort of bulk pricing works.
And in terms of vetting those editors and those writers at different, parts of that structure, is it a case of you just keep the brief very specific, very straightforward, and if they don't adhere to that brief after, 1, 2, 3 attempts, or maybe the first attempt, you can pretty quickly say, okay, they're not going to be a goer, I'll move on to the next person. Quite sort of simple in a way.
Yeah. And in addition to that, also their general communication is a really good sign. Like, if someone has a good attitude, they've got good communication, but maybe they don't quite get a brief, or they make a couple of mistakes that we think other writers would not make, we might be more willing to work with them and give them more attempts to get it right. Whereas other writers, I don't know, you can hire someone and they're like, great, and then you give them the work and you never hear from them again. So communication is a huge asset for us. And it can be just as simple as how they write. Like, are they writing in complete sentences, or are they sending lowercase i's? And are they replying frequently and sort of cordially? So you can learn a lot from how the person sort of presents themselves. It's very much about, you give them a brief, you give them some instructions, you link to examples, and then we normally give them 1 or 2 test articles. And if those are okay, we give them more, or we give some feedback, or we say, thanks, but no thanks.
The other bugbear of mine, because I've been copywriting since about, 1999, which shows how old I am, really. I've worked with hundreds of writers in that time. And the one thing that really gets on my nerves is kind of missed deadlines. So if someone misses a deadline straight away, is kind of a bit of a red flag that's going to happen repeatedly. And then it normally does. And kind of experience tells you that if people can't meet a deadline straight off the bat, then that's a problem. Yeah,
definitely. Everyone will miss a deadline once in a while. And again, this is where communication comes in, because if they, let's say something's due on Thursday and they say, something's come up, is it okay if I send half now and the rest on Friday morning? And they message you on Monday, then, that's okay. But if they don't even show up for work on the first day, then usually it's best to just save everybody hassle and get rid of them straight away.
Okay, well, look, we're going to go and talk about some specifics of the type of content you're creating as well. But just to sort of see what you've said so far in terms of hiring, if you very simply set out a list of specific things to do, the people that kind of do it straight away are the good ones. And it can be as straightforward as that, really. Yeah,
pretty much. It's the smart people will figure it out. You don't need to be too micromanaging there either.
Okay, cool. Right. So you mentioned keyword research as well earlier on. I guess a piece of content comes in from a client or for that's going to be created for one of your own niche sites. All starts with keyword research, does it?
9 times out of 10 it does. Yeah. Sometimes we write articles just because we know that that particular audience needs that article. So we're not fussed whether there's a keyword for it or not. But certainly, like, that's where projects would start, yeah.
You're listening to the Content Champion podcast, showcasing the training and tools you need to become a content marketing champion in your online business.
Okay, what are you looking for just generally in terms of keywords? Are you looking for long tail, low competition, but reasonable sort of search?
It depends, actually. Like, when I build a site when I start a site, I usually will have one or two kind of main keywords, which might be more on the competitive side, and I'm not expecting to rank for like 12 months or 6 months or something where it will take a while to rank, but there's high search volume, so it's worth it. And then I'll supplement that keyword with a whole bunch of long tail keywords to bring traffic in the meantime. So you're kind of covering all your bases there.
Okay, let's talk about content archetypes. Again, something you mentioned in terms of the type of content that you produce at scale. Give us an idea of some of the archetypes that you're producing and what elements go into each one that sort of create successful pieces of content that get traffic and conversions, as it were.
Yeah, so the kind of flagstone pillar article that we'll have with our sites it's what we call a best of post. So an example keyword would be like best nail clippers or something more appealing. Maybe that would be 1,000 words, maybe it'll be a bit longer. Really depends on whether it's like a huge search volume keyword. And what we normally do is if it's an Amazon article, for example, we'll go to Amazon, we'll pick the top 5 Amazon products relevant to that keyword. So this would be like the top 5 nail clippers. This is whether it's based on their bestseller rank or their reviews, like the number of stars and stuff. And then we'll just put those 5 in the article. We'll do an introduction saying what you need to look for in nail clippers, like, make sure they have a good emery board or something like that. And then each of the top 5, we will do the pros and cons and a mini introduction about the product, and we'll do a conclusion. And then at the end of the article, we'll have a winner. And we might say, this is the best if you're price conscious. This is the best if you are traveling, or this is the best if you want that. And it's essentially that simple. And we use these no matter what site we're doing. And they don't have to be for Amazon products. They can be for anything. Another one that works well is an actual specific review post. So you're just reviewing one specific product. So again, if we went with nail clippers, you would just review one particular nail clipper. Probably not the best example because I don't think people Google specific reviews of nail clippers.
I was just thinking I'm going to have to bin my best nail clippers and emeryboards.com site now that I'm working on after that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe if you were doing blenders, for example, people would actually be searching for reviews on individual blenders as well. So you could write like a 1,000 word article about that. And then to supplement all of that, we will do info articles because Google doesn't want it doesn't want to rank a website that's just reviews and affiliate links. So we would do a bunch of info articles as well. That could be something like, maybe we could go with blenders. We could say like, what's the best blender for juicing, or 15 different juicer recipes, or how to make sure your blender stays in good condition. So just stuff that's around blending. And sometimes you get an opportunity as well to put product links in there, or you can link to a review article as well. So traffic goes around and you can link internally. But those are really the main articles that I focus on. And then we'll occasionally have other types that might have been designed to attract links or something like that.
Okay, so we've got our team in place. We're producing that type of content. We know that that's going to work and get us results over time. And we've done all our keyword research and everything else you mentioned there. This bit I find really pernickety whenever I'm doing client work or working on my own websites is kind of getting the stuff published, it can often be overlooked. Getting the finished article with images in it, formatting, uploaded to WordPress, everything else. That bit is quite problematic at scale, I should imagine.
Yeah, that was definitely the first thing I ever outsourced, because you write this article and you're like, I'm done. And then you realize you've got to highlight stuff and change it to bold and all of that. That's actually easier to scale than content because it's just a lot easier to outsource. It's cheaper to outsource because you can find non-native speakers who have good enough English to understand how to format an article, how to use WordPress, how to follow your instructions. Whereas, you wouldn't necessarily want to use them as content writers. Content's a lot harder because it's very subjective as well. So you need to make sure that your clients are going to be happy. Whereas it's a lot easier to say, make sure you use H2 tags on all of the subheadings, or make sure you link internally to one other article. So essentially, I scaled it the same way. I taught my managers how to do it, and then they did it themselves for a little while until they were proficient at it. And then they were like, right, we're going to go hire people to do it for us. And so it's very much like a production line. Like, okay, the content is completed, it's been edited, it's all good. Just pass it over to the site builders and they upload it and format it. And then they can either publish it straight away, or they can schedule it, or they can leave it in draft for someone to come. And then the final step is we have someone whose job is basically QA. So they'll just go over everything and they'll catch mistakes, because no matter how good your person is, how diligent they are, there'll just be mistakes. So we found having that final safety net is really important as well.
And it's interesting because in my research for this call, I was reading an article you wrote about outsourcing, and you've mentioned a lot of different tasks there. And you say in that piece on Human Proof Designs that you shouldn't employ somebody as a sort of super catch-all outsource superpower master, whatever I'm trying to say, superhero outsourcer that does everything. You should employ based on those individual specific roles, and then have a manager over the top of them all, so they do each of their specific things very well.
Yeah. I mean, if this kind of superhero multitasker person exists, then I'm not going to say, don't hire them. But I think a lot of people kind of expect to be able to hire a general person that can do everything. And firstly, it's difficult because they're just going to end up being like a replica of you. And if you're struggling to keep your head focused on everything and you can't think, oh, have we uploaded everything correctly? Have the managers done, if you can't cope with everything, how can they cope with everything? And also, you can just hire specialists for the same price. Like if your business needs 100 hours worth of work outsourced, why give it to one person and expect him to spend 100 hours on 10 different tasks when you can hire 10 people for 10 hours each? I can't see it being worse, and I can only see it being better. So it just makes sense to do it that way.
And you mentioned replicating yourself there. It's often for people going from solopreneur sort of status to building their businesses. It's often, the hardest thing is to kind of look at what you're good at and what you're not so good at, and then perhaps outsource the things you're not so good at, or the things that don't make you as much money in terms of you're dealing with the overall strategy that drives the business forward. And I think it's being that in that management position is identifying your own core skills as well, so you can then manage effectively. Would that be a good assessment?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. And I think another thing is it does make sense to outsource the things you're not good at first. But I also found more success outsourcing the things that I was good at, but I wasn't the only person who needed to do it. So it was a lot easier for me to outsource keyword research because, I was good at it already, so I could teach it. But also it was something that anybody could do. Whereas outsourcing sales emails is a lot harder because, nobody can kind of sell a business as well as the owner. Whereas outsourcing something that I'm not good at, maybe I wouldn't know how to train somebody else to do it effectively. So there's kind of a different process involved. If you're hiring for something that you're not very good at yourself, maybe you need to be more diligent with your interview because you want to be looking for signs that they might have skills that you don't have, and it might be hard for you to actually figure out whether they have that skill if you don't have it.
For sure. Okay. And I'm going to be
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Made more sense than my superpower, whatever I was trying to ask earlier on. This is a bit cheeky, but in terms of content promotion at scale, we could have a whole series of podcasts on promoting your content. But I know your business model is specifically creating the content and everything else, but for your niche sites, when you start to crank things up, how are you promoting content when it's produced at scale?
Not as well as I would like to. That's the short answer. I mean, generally for a lot of my niche sites, we're not promoting it in the kind of traditional, like, go out there and do outreach and share it with social media manner, because we find for niche sites that's not necessarily, well, it's not the highest priority. So we'll generally just do link building to promote our content, and link building is something that you can scale. For me, getting traffic to my site, getting eyeballs on my content, it's all about ranking in Google, and the way to rank in Google is pretty much to build links. I will do some other stuff as well, like I'll create content specifically designed to attract links and things like that. But yeah, like my general strategy is either adding more content or building more links. Those are the two things that I focus on. Are
you doing PBNs or Web 2.0s, or you don't have to answer that question?
Yeah, but not like, I like to be in the middle. So if I can get white hat links, I will. If I need to build PBN links, I will. I'm not like aggressively in either camp.
Okay, well, I don't think Matt Cutts or whoever's doing his job now is listening anyway. So that's all really, really interesting and fascinating. And I just want to move on to the PS question in a minute, but I'd just like you to remind us all where we can find you online, Dom, and tell us about this great case study membership that you're doing, which looks fascinating.
Yeah. So two questions. So humanproofdesigns.com is where where people can find me and follow me and subscribe and, get all of our cool free content. And then in addition, I just recently started, I've called it the $0 to $10,000 over the shoulder case study, which is a bit of a mouthful. I should have tried to put super in there as well. Yeah. So the basic idea is I've recently sold quite a few of my niche sites. So I thought, okay, I want to build my portfolio up again. And why don't I just share it with all of my customers? So I decided to put it inside my membership, which we've launched a membership recently. It's like got a monthly recurring fee of $49, and then after May we're going up to $59. And the basic idea is I want to be able to share everything. And when you do a public case study on your blog, you can share a lot, but either you share everything and then some bad things can happen, like people attack your site, or you share everything and the case study isn't really accurate because you get thousands of people visiting your site who aren't real visitors, like they're just people reading the case study. Like one example is Tung Tran from cloudliving.com. He's doing a great case study with his site, and it gets loads of traffic from Vietnam because he's Vietnamese and loads of his fans go visit his site. So it's not really an accurate case study. And also, I just want to be able to share it in more detail with all of my paying members. So it's kind of a reward for them as well. So what I'm doing is every week I'm working on my sites and I'm recording everything I'm doing, and then I'm editing it all together and uploading a video.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
This is what I call the PS question. So could you please share, Dom, one advanced content marketing tactic we can use right after the show?
Sure. So one of my favorite things to do is use either SEMrush or Ahrefs. Both have the same feature for this. And find a forum in your niche. So, just any forum in your niche, and put that forum into the tool I mentioned. So let's say SEMrush, and then you'll get a list of all the keywords that forum ranks for. And then I like to filter it out. So only show me the keywords that it ranks in the top 5 for. So like page 1, top 5 positions. And what that gives you is a list of really easy keywords, because if a forum ranks in the top 5, then generally speaking, unless it's a really, really, really high authority forum, that means it's a weak keyword. And you often can't find these keywords using traditional keyword research. But if you reverse engineer forums, you see all sorts of keywords. And you can find great ideas for review posts. You can just find really good ideas for comparison posts. And generally speaking, if you put those articles on your site, you'll be able to rank very easily without even building any links. And you might even outrank the forum. So I do that with every site several times a year.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm definitely stealing that. Thanks very much indeed for your time today, Dom, and great answer to the PS question as well. All that remains to say is everyone go and check out Human Proof Designs, and I wish you every success in future.
Yeah, likewise, and thanks for having me. It's been great.
You've been listening to the Content Champion podcast, available at contentchampion.com and on iTunes. Until next time, thanks for listening.